Okay, so Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I mean, this book is so much more than just a harrowing story about the Holocaust. It's this deep psychological dive into what keeps us going, what keeps us human when absolutely everything is stripped away. It's really about finding a reason to live, even when you're in the darkest place imaginable.
And at the heart of it all is this one powerful idea from Nietzsche that Frankl just latches onto. He saw with his own eyes that having a why, a real purpose, something to live for in the future, that was the absolute key to survival. It was like this internal engine that could push back against almost anything the world threw at you.
But that's the million-dollar question, right? How in the world do you find a why in literally the worst place on Earth? I mean, it's one thing for us to talk about finding our purpose, but in a concentration camp, a place specifically designed to erase your humanity? Well, Frankl's answer to that? It starts the second he gets there. So, Frankl breaks down what a prisoner goes through into these 3 psychological phases. And the first one, it's just pure, unfiltered shock. The second those train doors opened at Auschwitz, their entire reality just shattered. It became an absolute nightmare.
And this process of dehumanization, it was just bam, immediate, systematic, all on that first day. They strip you of your possessions. And Frankl, who is a psychiatrist, he tried so desperately to save the manuscript of his life's work, and a seasoned prisoner just laughed in his face and yelled the one word that summed up their new reality: shit. And just like that, his whole past, his whole identity was gone, wiped out, and then he wasn't Viktor Frankl anymore. He was prisoner number 119104.
What's so chilling is how casual it all was. They called it the finger game. An SS officer would just casually point his finger, left or right. That one simple gesture decided everything. Can you believe it? 90% of the people on Frankl's transport were sent to the left, straight to the gas chambers. Frankl got pointed to the right, to the work camps. Life or death decided by a flick of a wrist. So here's the key takeaway from this first phase. Frankl noticed that the prisoners, they held on to this delusion of reprieve, this tiny hope that maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't be as bad as it seemed. They even developed this really grim, dark sense of humor. And you might think that's crazy, but Frankl says, no. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is actually normal behavior. It was their minds building a tiny shield to protect them.
Okay, so once that initial shock starts to fade, the prisoner moves into the second phase. And this one is all about apathy. It's like an emotional death, really. A necessary shell you build around yourself to survive the daily beatings, the starvation, the constant death. But it was right there, in that emotional wasteland, that Frankl found something absolutely profound.
And this right here, this is the absolute core of his entire philosophy. He realized that they could take everything from a man, his home, his family, his name, even his physical freedom, but there was one thing they could never, ever touch: his inner freedom, his ability to choose his attitude. He saw guys walking through the barracks comforting others, giving away their very last piece of bread. They proved that even in hell, you could choose your own way. You could choose to be worthy of your suffering.
So where did this incredible inner strength even come from? Well, for Frankl, a lot of the time it came from love. He talks about being on a freezing, brutal forced march, and he would just focus with all his might on the image of his wife. He'd picture her smile, hear her voice, and for a moment he'd feel this sense of bliss that was so powerful it completely blotted out the horror around him. And that's when he understood. The salvation of man is through love, and in love. It's the highest thing we can aspire to, this inner life that can rise above any outer fate.
All right, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the actual philosophy that Frankl built from all these experiences. It's a whole school of psychotherapy he called logotherapy, and it's a really powerful alternative to some of the other big psychological theories out there.
So, logotherapy. The name itself comes from the Greek word logos, which, you guessed it, means meaning. Because for Frankl, our primary motivation, the thing that really drives us as human beings, isn't pleasure, it isn't power, it's the search for meaning in our lives. It's our will to meaning. It's what gets us up in the morning and, as he proved, it's what can keep you alive in a death camp.
So how does this stack up against the big names like Freud and Adler? Well, you've probably heard of Freud's will to pleasure and Adler's will to power. Frankl comes along and says, yeah, those are real, but they're not the main thing. He argued that we only chase after pleasure and power when our deeper will to meaning is frustrated. When our lives feel empty, we try to fill that void with stuff: pleasure, money, status. But he insisted our deepest need is for real, genuine meaning.
Okay, so that's the theory. We all have this will to meaning, but How do you actually find it? That's the important part, right? And thankfully, Frankl doesn't just leave us hanging with some abstract idea. He lays out 3 very clear, very concrete paths that are open to literally every single one of us. So, path number 1, creation. Finding meaning by creating a work or doing a deed. Simple enough. Path number 2, experience. Finding meaning by experiencing something beautiful, like nature or art, or by encountering someone, through love. And then there's path number 3, and this one is the most powerful, especially in Frankl's story. It's the attitude we choose to take towards suffering that we absolutely cannot avoid.
Now, this is a game-changing idea. He says that suffering stops being suffering the moment it finds a meaning. Think about that. When you're faced with something you just can't change, like a terrible illness or, in his case, being in a concentration camp, the challenge isn't to change the situation, but to change yourself. By facing that fate with courage and dignity, you can transform a tragedy into a victory. The suffering is still there, sure, but its meaning, its very nature, completely changed.
And look, this isn't just some high-minded philosophy for extreme life-or-death situations. This will to meaning is incredibly relevant right now, today. Just look at this study from Johns Hopkins. They asked thousands of college students what they thought was most important in life. Only 16% said making a lot of money, but a whopping 78%, almost 4 out of 5, said it was finding a purpose and meaning in my life. That tells you everything, doesn't it?
And this all leads us to the final and maybe the most crucial shift in perspective that Frankl is asking us to make. It's about completely reorienting the way we look at our own lives.
We spend so much of our time asking, what do I expect from life? Or what's the meaning of my life? As if life owes us some kind of answer. Frankl just flips that question completely on its head. He says, stop asking what you expect from life. Instead, start asking, what does life expect from me? It's a huge shift. Every single day, every hour, life is the one asking the question.
So how do we answer life's questions? Not with fancy words or big speeches. We answer with our actions, with our conduct. We answer by taking responsibility for our work, for the people we care about, and for how we carry our burdens. This responsibleness, that's the word he uses, that is the very core of what it means to be human. We are not just victims of our circumstances. We are ultimately the ones who decide what we will be.
And Frankl leaves us with one last, incredibly powerful challenge. It's a bit of a mind-bender, but stick with me. He says, live as if you were living already for the second time, and as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you are about to act now. Whoa. What he's really doing is forcing us to face the weight of our choices in this very moment. It's like a gut check. It confronts us with the ultimate responsibility we have to make every single second count. It's really asking us a simple but profound question. Okay, this is your shot. What are you going to do?